17 Unified Outdoor Bocce District Tournament Host Operations webinar. So, as Melissa said, this would be a meticulous review of everything that all district reps and/or tournament directors will need to know in order to host a successful tournament. So the first thing, as I said, for the most part, the Unified Sports District reps shall serve as tournament directors. In the case that a district rep can't or is not serving, then they are to appoint someone perfectly knowledgeable about bocce with running the district tournament. Yes, sir. Hello? Okay, I'll continue. So the tournament's main responsibility is to host the meet, ensure that the policies, protocols, and competition and rules of bocce are properly complied with, and you are also at liberty to to enlist the services of an assistant tournament director. So just to be clear, if you're a district rep, then you're serving as tournament director, and if not, you can appoint a tournament director and/or you can appoint an assistant tournament director. If this is the case that you are appointing a tournament director, then you need to send that person's information to Melissa Kelly, and her email is provided there, and she'll need that information no less than 1 week prior to the commencement of your tournament. That person is eligible to receive a $75 stipend, which is the equivalent to MPSSAA's tournament stipend. And an administrator of a school nor an athletic director can be the tournament director or assistant tournament director, because those responsibilities fall under their normal responsibilities. So it has to be someone who's outside of those two roles. And I'll move on. So this page is just the Special Olympics mission and philosophy page. I won't go into detail with it. I just want to highlight that Special Olympics philosophy, that anyone, including those with intellectual disabilities, can learn, enjoy, and benefit from participation in individual and team sports. And me personally, and I ask that everybody, we take that serious, because I feel that we are the ones who are responsible for creating the environment and accomplishing those goals. And then you have the 6 values that guide the decisions of Special Olympics: community, friendships, integrity, opportunity, quality, and sportsmanship. So all of what we do in our decisions are based in those 6 values. Here you'll find my contact information, my email address, and my mobile phone number, and then the email addresses of each of the district representatives, as well as the Special Olympics Maryland staff that is relevant to Unified Bocce. So on to the actual tournament. Section 1. So opening ceremony is very important. In 1988, Special Olympics was officially recognized by the IOC, and as such, Special Olympics is bound to include certain elements into every competition, and mainly that is the opening ceremonies, the competition itself, of course, and then some type of system for awards and closing. So as it says here, the opening ceremony, it sets the tone for the competition. So I've been doing this for a while, and I've seen opening ceremonies that have been great, and it really does set the tone for your entire event, and it gets the student athletes excited. It gets the spectators excited. So make sure you take the proper time and effort to ensure that you're going to have an engaging opening ceremony. One important thing you have to start with is selecting an MC. And this can be yourself, the tournament director. I've seen tournament directors do it themselves, or I've seen them, again, enlist someone who has those abilities to capture the audience, and they know how to get the crowd involved, and they speak articulate, loud, all of those good things. So this can be anybody who you choose to. And following this page, you'll see an opening script for the ceremonies. So it's not like they have to come up with anything themselves. We have the opening script here for them to read. You'll just fill in the necessary blanks that you see. You can write it in before the tournament, type it up, and give it to whomever your MC is. This is continuing the script.
Yeah, Brian, I'll add that if anyone wants any portion of this in editable version, Microsoft is what we use to put this together. We can give that to you so that you can have the opportunity to type in the vacant information.
Thank you. And one thing you want to include in the script, is great if you have time to include everything, but you may find that you don't have time to include everything, but there are some non-negotiables, and the oaths you definitely want to include, particularly the coach's oath and the athlete's oath. I know for district tournaments in the past that I've been a part of, there haven't been designated officials as there are at the state tournament, so the officials are usually the coaches. So the coach's oath and the athlete's oath are definitely two elements that you want to make sure you include in your opening ceremony. So what you can do before the tournament start is contact, a coach and an athlete, and just set up that they'll be reciting these two oaths, and then you can open your games. Now, in terms of award ceremonies, this is my first year with outdoor bocce, so I'm not sure exactly any time constraints that you all may have. Again, I've been a part of different district tournaments, so I've seen where the award ceremonies can mimic. There's enough time for the award ceremonies to mimic the way that it's done exactly at states, and then there have been other times where because of time constraints, that opportunity was not possible. So just one note on that. You want to make sure that whatever you do, of course you have enough time for it, but you want to make sure that the award ceremony has the proper reverence, because again, the opening, the competition, and then the award ceremonies are the non-negotiables that must be a part of every competition. So in terms of who's eligible for an award, any player that's officially registered for the competition, that means they're on that team's postseason registration, is eligible. We want to stress that rewards are earned and they're not just given and passed out. So of course, if anyone is participating that day, they will be getting an award. The award goes from gold on through 8th place, I believe. So everyone does get an award except for the coaches. So the awards are only for the student athletes. And in the case that someone is not present to participate at the district tournament, but they did participate during the regular season, and maybe because of an injury or an illness, they were not able to either be present at the tournament, or they were present and weren't able to participate in the tournament, they are eligible to receive an award. But of course, you don't want to award anybody that hasn't participated at all. So any student during the competition who is disqualified, which is really the case, should not be given a participation award. And as I said, gold medals are given and ribbons are also given, and they have the Special Olympics Unified Sports logo, which the students happen to love. So here is the awards protocol, and I won't read through it directly. Just a couple of key points I want to emphasize. So when you're giving out awards, you want to make sure you have a designated area at your venue to do so. What usually works is having one or two 6-foot tables and a podium in place, tables to house the awards, and then a podium for the announcer to announce the awards. And you'll see as I scroll down that we even provide a script for you to do that as well. In the past, what I've seen almost at each tournament, and this is on the district level and the state level, is as teams place, then they're directed to make their way over to the awards area and they receive their awards. This makes for just an efficient tournament. I've seen where smaller districts and a smaller amount of schools, they do wait for the entire tournament to end and they award everybody all at one time. When I say at one time, it's still you called up by your individual schools, but it's done at one time. But for larger districts or districts will have a larger amount of schools, then you may want to have it be sort of an ongoing process as they finish. So, of course, just like at the state games, if it's possible, we like for law enforcement or honor guests and VIPs to present the awards, but if not, then it'll be up to the tournament director to assign individuals and appoint individuals to do so. Whatever you choose, you just make sure that all volunteers know exactly how you want to run it, and in our individual appointments, in my individual phone conversations with you all, we can actually discuss anything in particular to how you may want to give out awards and what system that you may want to come up with to do so. So again, this is what I referenced earlier, the announcer script for the MC on whomever is going to be in control of the microphone when it comes time to give out the awards. This list of mascots is every school who will be participating in the tournament. So if you reference preceding pages, you'll see that in announcing schools, it's actually done by, it includes the mascot. So if you wanted to write anything in and be prepared, we provided this list for you. Okay, on to the tournament management. So attendees are not to be charged for admission, parking fees, and any fees alike. So to spectate the event, you cannot, have a door charge or a cover charge. No air horns or artificial noise makers are allowed, and no type of electronic effects, including music, may not play while the match is in progress. So, pre-competition, post-competition, any type of intermissions you have, tournament directors are at liberty to have, music play. But while the match is actually going on, you want to be sure that all music and any other electronic effects have ceased. Star Spangled Banner, the anthem, shall be played or sung during the open ceremony. So again, that can be a recording or a live person. And in terms of neutrality, because the district tournament is a neutral tournament, then there shouldn't be any overt or customized apparel or signage that are put up to give the home team any type of home atmosphere. So as much as possible, don't put any extra signage up, because we want to leave it a neutral environment. Of course, alcoholic beverages are never to be sold, dispensed, or consumed. And same thing with the use of tobacco. Americans with Disability Act, this is an important one, because when you're the host venue, you want to make sure that everyone has access to the things they need access to water, bathrooms, any doors, any gates. In the past, I've seen people kind of get jammed up because they didn't have wheelchair access for a particular student, and then they're running to find a building engineer, custodian. So you just want to kind of do a quick run through to make sure everything that everyone will need to access is accessible. And while you cannot charge for a ticket for admissions, you can run concessions. So food and beverage prices should be no higher than similar events. So, you know, if it's at a school the same as a basketball game or volleyball game would be, you want the prices to be similar, but you are at, you know, liberty to run your concessions. Directional signs, I found this to be very useful. So you'll have student athletes and parents coming from, you know, different schools convening at your venue, and it's always great to have as many signs as possible to make access to different areas easy for people to know. So mainly bathroom, water, concessions, those type of things. And I've seen, I'm not sure again how outdoor bocce is run, but in my district we usually run our tournament during school hours. So directional signs are important for telling people where to go, but they're also important for telling people where not to go and wander off to. So you want to, you know, do a survey of your venue and make sure that you have signs in place that are necessary. In terms of managing the competition of the game, so gold medalists will be able to advance to the state tournament. And if you're not familiar, the way we do it, the allocation for your district is in proportion to how the percentage of your teams that participate overall. For example, if a particular district has 10 teams participating or 10% of total participation across compared to the state, then they'll be allotted 10% of the state invitational game. So that's 32. So that district would be allotted 3 teams to advance. As such, you want to, if possible, in your district tournament, when you're setting up your competition brackets and your divisions, however many teams you're informed that you're allocated to have at state, you want to have that number of divisions. So if your district will be allotted 3 teams to advance to states, then it's ideal that in your district tournament, you'll have 3 brackets with the gold medalists from each bracket being able to advance. In the event, because of size or time constraints, that won't work, you do have options, and that's something else that you and I can go over in our private, our individual conversations. But just a quick note, it may be best for you to have the gold and silver medalists advance to the state tournament. So that's something that I'm here for you to work out with you in our individual time with one another. Moving on to the coaches' meetings, always great before competition starts or before the opening ceremony, actually, to have a brief coaches' meeting. So it's ideal for you to send out some type of informational sheet to the coaches that lists information pertinent to your district tournament. But in addition to that, as schools arrive and check in, you should set a time and designate a time where you pull all of the coaches together just to nail down anything that may not have been covered in that document or that you just want to re-emphasize, such as the brackets, the time in between games, how awards will work, how officiating will work in terms of coaches officiating. So make sure you have a coaches meeting set up before the opening ceremonies. Roster consistency. So the playing roster must be consistent with the roster as it appears on the post-registration sheet that you are submit to your district reps or regional sports directors or myself. Scratches are permissible, but what you cannot do is add anyone to the post-registration that does not appear on what was already submitted to Special Olympics. So when you arrive, you should have a check-in process where the coach submits the post-registration, and you match it up with what you already have in terms of your post-registration and make sure that's consistent. And then that's where you allow for the coach to inform of any scratches that they may have, anyone that didn't come, any athlete that didn't come, or they came and they will not be participating that day. But under no circumstances shall somebody be added that wasn't on there before. Match results. So just as in the regular season games, each match should have both a winning point total that ends the game or time that ends the game. So ideally that's 16 points or 30 points for the matches. If there's a need to modify the time, we just ask that you don't make the match less than 20 minutes. So set 20 minutes as the floor. If you need to adjust the time, but ideally 30 minutes usually works. And the way you want to set your bracket up is for each team to play at least 2 matches. And again, I'm more than willing and happy to work with anyone who needs help with setting up their brackets. At the end of the match, so say the 30 minutes expires and the game is tied, the teams will play another frame, and that frame will be the determinant of the winner. Declaration of last frame. So on your PA system, you always want to declare the declaration, of the last frame. And it can be done 2 ways. So last frame can be declared with 1 minute remaining in regulation or at the expiration, of the time. I personally think it's best to announce it at the declaration of the time, because if you announce it with 1 minute left and the frame ends, then maybe confusion if time is still ticking and teams may think they can start another frame. So what I've done in the past as a tournament director, at the expiration of time, I've just declared that the current frame is the last frame and a new frame is not to be started at the conclusion of the current frame. And at the discretion of the tournament director, he or she may add additional time to the regulation time allocated for the match. So at this year's state tournament, you want to stay away from this as much as possible, but due to circumstances that couldn't be charged to either team, their match didn't start directly on time as everyone else's, so the tournament director, Special Olympics, had they had the discretion of extending the time. So as tournament director, you had that same discretion. Use it wisely, though. Don't allow anyone to try to abuse it. If you did have to start after 30 minutes, it's not a big deal, in my opinion, to still end it at the same time, but you do have that discretion. So the athletes, partners, and coaches have all worked hard up until that point, hopefully to have a great season and to showcase their skills and exhibit what their training has yielded. So we should make every effort to uphold the integrity of competition, and that means maintaining the rules. As tournament director, it's very important that that person is well versed on the rules, or I should say as much as possible, because you will have things that come up and issues that come up, and you want to best be able to handle that by referencing what's in writing in the coach's resource guide. So make sure yourself or whoever your director is well versed with the resource guide and the rules that are included in that. The control center, this can be the place where as schools arrive, they check in. That way you have one central location, and this is also the place where any coaches, bring any issues. It could be where the public address system is. It's just all about how, you want to set up your venue, but you want to have a centralized location for student athletes, coaches, and officials to report to when they need to, if they have any questions or any issues that need to be addressed. Also want to have a system for reporting results. So just to give you an example, at the state tournament, we had 2 officials per match, and the way we did it is at the conclusion of the game, one of those officials will bring the scorecard to the control center, and then we will post the result. So whatever your system is, and again, I'll help you with determining that. You just want to make sure you have one in place that's consistent across the board and that's efficient and allows for you to keep, efficiently keep up, tabulate, and post the results. I already talked about scratches. So protests must be filed within 15 minutes of the completion of a match, and all protests will come to you. And the best way to, or the preferred way to handle protests is to have basically a mini committee that reviews the protest on site and then delivers a decision. So if 2 coaches, or if a coach has a conflict or has a protest, they bring it to you, and then you pull together a sports committee. That committee is best to be comprised of coaches that aren't involved in the actual match, or that were not involved in the actual match. And I've also found that it's best to have an odd number to break any ties in voting. But you want to have that in place, and whatever the protest procedures is or are, you should make that a part of the coaches meeting. So just wanted to stress that. Also, of course, you want to have a plan for medical services, so have first aid kits on site. You should be able to get that if your event is at a school, from the athletics director, athletics department should be able to handle that. And then you want to have a plan for inclement weather. So just as May 18th is our date for the state tournament, but we have a rain date of May 22nd, you want to provide that to your coaches as well. So as you're setting your dates, I believe most of them are set. You want to have a backup plan in place to have an inclement weather date, and then you want to have a system for communicating that to your coaches, especially if your tournaments are early. So want to have a system in place. Hey, this is the rain date. We'll notify you by X time if there's a change or if there's an update to be communicated. And I'll be in communication with everyone if you need help with making that decision as well. So this checklist is provided to you just to help you to make sure you have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. The first bullet is very important: communication to the participating team. So I'm sure you've been in contact with all of your coaches, and you want to make sure you continue to do that, especially in regards to the tournament. Make sure you communicate things such as who's to bring in bocce courts. So if you want to have 3 courts set up, of course, it's always best to ask 4 or 5 schools to bring it so that you can have spares, provide directions to your tournament, provide a food service plan. So if your tournament is during the day, or even if it's in the evening and student athletes need to bring their lunch, that's something that needs to be communicated to the coaches. If concession stands will be made available, you want to provide that information to the coaches to include prices. Talked about the medical personnel, direction signage, water stations, especially it being outside. So normally teams, I'm assuming, do bring their own water, but it would be great if you could have a water station set up, or at least somewhere where kids can go drink water, PA system, ceremonies, and then the competitions. And like I said earlier, just as in the normal matches, if you are unable to recruit volunteers to be the officials, then of course the coaches have to volunteer. You just want to make sure that the officials have a workable knowledge of bocce, even if that is you before the tournament, going over brief training with them on the rules and procedures of bocce. Where it says score, I find that, I'm sorry, let me back up to time. So if your tournament is taking place in a school gymnasium, it's great to use the main clock that's used on volleyball, basketball, other sports. However, if you do have a different clock, just have a way of coaches being aware of how much time is left, and then also aware of the score. So manual scoreboards are great. Um, Moving on to the roster verification. So I sent an email out late last week regarding this, but this is the postseason registration form that I was referring to. So this is what you'll go off to check teams in. And again, if someone is not on this sheet, then they cannot be added the day of the tournament. Someone can be scratched from it if they're not present, but they cannot be added to it. It would be best to have these printed out for each team and to inform coaches to bring their own, just so anything isn't crossed or missed. And here you have the court marking. So as best as possible, you want to make sure that the court markings on it are clear. You want to have the lines that you see, but also it's great to have elevated markings in the form of cones. I've seen pylons used. So you want to make sure that those are in line and that those are consistent. I know different people use different methods, from what I understand, of making these lines, but you just want to make sure that they are present and in place. And this is an example of what can be created and distributed to coaches pre-competition. Supplement A here gives an arrival time, a check-in time, a coaches meeting, the agenda. Just makes for a smooth communication and efficient running of the tournament for the coaches. Here's a quick guide, reference guide, and this is also in your coaching manual. One thing that I did want to point out, the rule change where the Palina upon initial placement has to be 12 inches from the board. That's no longer in place. So wherever the Palina is rolled, as long as it's past the proper lines, it's good, but it doesn't have to be moved 12 feet in from the ball. From the sidewall. If there's anyone who, if there's a district rep who's enlisting a tournament director and you want to include me on reviewing and going over the rules with that person, I'm more than willing and happy to do so. Just let me know and we can make that a part of our one-on-one conversation, or we can set up another time where I can go over the rules. I won't spend time going over them now because I'm sure most of you are familiar with them and they're here for you, but we want to make sure, unless you have any questions at the end, I'll be happy to address them, but we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the rules. I will speak on substitutions to be clear. So you can have substitutions. A substitute is 2 additional players. So the first requirement for a team to have a substitution is they have to have 8 people. So you cannot have 6 people on your roster and then 2 as subs. If you had 2 as subs, that would just be a roster of 8 with no subs. So the first requirement to have a sub is to have a minimum of 8 people. With subs must be of like roles. So partners are to be subbed in for partners. Athletes are to be subbed in for athletes. You can make a sub. You have the liberty to make a sub at any time of the game. But once you make the sub, then that is final. So if you sub out, first frame, then that sub must remain for the rest of the time unless there's an injury that takes place. Ideally, you want to sub halfway through the match, so that's either halfway through the point total or halfway during time. But again, you have the liberty to do so. Here provided for you is a scorecard. So what you may want to do is print a few of these out so they're available during your tournament for you to distribute. And then also provided in the manual is examples or actual templates for setting up your brackets. And again, you're at liberty to do this yourself if you can handle it, if you've done it in the past, you feel comfortable with it. But I'm more than happy to do it with you. So we have a 2-team round robin, and I won't take time to explain how each one works. Just want you to see what's available. A 3-team round robin with tiebreak criteria, and then a 3-team round robin with a different kind of on-court tiebreak criteria. So what we'll do is when we speak individually, we'll determine, once we know how many teams are allocated, we'll determine the best way to set up your divisions. Of course, if you have like a division where, because I'm showing you a lot of round robin, where there are 4 teams, you may just have a standard single elimination tournament where the teams advance and you have a consolation game. If you do have a bracket with 3 teams, of course, you're going to do a round robin, and you'll need to have a way of breaking the tie if everybody goes 1-1. But again, those are things that we'll discuss when I speak with each of you during our appointment times. But provided for you are templates to brackets and how you can set them up. So these are our sponsors, of course. I felt like I've talked very fast. I hope I was clear and answered anything that you may have wanted or needed answered. But if not, at this time, if anyone has any questions, you can ask.
Brian, this is Melissa. Just a couple points to clarify. I jotted a couple notes. First of all, you did an excellent job reviewing it, and hopefully this is all encompassing. And everyone on the call is either intimately familiar with unified sports, unified bocce, and or tournament hosting. So please keep in mind that this manual, to the most meticulous detail, is intended for those who may not have that experience. So wanted to let everyone know that. With regard to some of the content, just to clarify, there's reference to the stadium clock or the gymnasium clock. That was an error, a carryover from indoor bocce. So if you do have the availability, we certainly want to have the most grand stage for this tournament. We realize that facility limitations may not allow that. The grandest stage certainly on your campus would be the stadium, the football stadium, the varsity soccer stadium, if you will. But if that's not available, certainly something with level and adequate playing surface. And with regard to a clock, if you do not have a clock available, a large display clock available at that venue, please do maintain a means to keep the score and then incrementally announce the amount of time left. Or you could have the officials start a handheld stopwatch all at the same time, or use their phone, whatever you deem the best option. With regard to that as well, a lot of reference to officiating. We have the luxury at Special Olympics Maryland of recruiting officials, recruiting volunteers to help run our tournament. That is a huge responsibility and very time-consuming as well, to make sure that everyone is adequately trained, recruited, trained, and what have you. So an alternative to that would be to have the coaches serve as officials. Prince George's County actually implemented this a number of years ago, and Brian served as a coach there and as well as the district representative. So Brian, I realize I'm putting you on the spot, but if you could speak to that as coaches serving as officials, I believe that's a very good option as we move into the advanced competition in outdoor bocce as well.
Oh, sure. So when I came on board in 2000, I think it was 10 in Prince George's County, we did not, of course, have officials, and we were actually told that the coaches had to do the officiating. So it was communicated in our pre-season meetings, and it works great because most of the schools had two coaches, so one coach from each team would officiate. That kept it fair, and especially when it came to measurements, it gets pretty competitive, as you all know. So it also worked because one, you kind of need two people to measure. So if you have one coach from each team measuring, that keeps things fair. But in terms of, I guess, recruiting coaches, I'm not even sure if I'm the best to speak to it, only because in Prince George's County we had to. We weren't even aware of, that we could recruit volunteers to be coaches. So I don't know. And let me apologize. I made several references to a basketball gym. My mind was still on indoor bocce. But I don't know how it is in the counties that do or have done outdoor bocce. If I'm understanding right, you all have been able to recruit volunteers that aren't coaches to officiate the matches.
It's not very common, no.
Okay.
At times we need to work within that range that we do have people, but I think a good point of consideration is the coaches have a vested interest in ensuring that the match is officiated properly. So that's, above all, our ensuring that the rules are upheld. So that's a good point too. Plus the hardship of recruiting is sometimes difficult. Very good, thank you. And the last point that I jotted is if you do take on the responsibility of setting the divisions and the brackets and what have you, for those of you who are doing it for the first time, we do absolutely want to help you along the way. The brackets need to be sent to Brian and myself before they are published or announced as official. And I will make this statement, and we'll all work together to make sure this is held true, and that schools with multiple teams, we will not put those teams in the same bracket. So we would not, unfortunately, I believe in District 10, which is what we call the Upper Shore, or the northern part of the Bayside, we had a situation where a school had two teams and they were competing against one another for the district tournament. We will make every step, and I will just short of guarantee that will not occur. So I need your help in upholding that as well. So that's all I had, though, Brian. Well done.
No problem. Is there anyone with any questions? Alrighty, Melissa. So again, I'll be in communication with each of you all to set up individual conversations, like I said, going forward, just to make sure everything is in place. Thank you for taking the time to join, and if you have any questions after this, please feel free to contact me.